Hey, what's up guys? Back with another MVP Baseball 2005 video. This time we're talking about the draft, and more specifically editing it versus kind of just letting it play out the way it is. And this is something that I do when I start up my dynasty, because I'll go ahead and simulate a couple seasons before I start, and then I'll play a couple seasons so I can get four or five seasons into it. And you'll notice a difference if you get that far into it. If you're a guy who's only taken the roster out of the package and playing a season or two, probably no need to get into this. But anyway, this is going to be a multi-segment video. It's going to show you the draft, what I'm talking about in terms of how guys are first rounders and they're still only one-star guys in terms of career potential. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and show you kind of what I do over we'll say like a 3-year span, in terms of if you choose to edit the guys versus if you just choose to let it kind of play out with their abilities the way the computer will have it set up. So anyway, went ahead and did this, and I picked Detroit because I know that their roster isn't that good, and just simulated all the way through a season with them, and I figured you could get a high draft pick that way, so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. So based on everything I did when I went through it, they actually had the second worst record in the league, actually right there behind the White Sox. Go through here real quick. You see a couple teams had 68 wins, 70. Take a look at draft order. What I did one time, actually, when I went into the retirements section, was I counted the number of guys that retired after the first season. It was about 160 or so. And those were all kind of the scrub older players that were in the game. But as you see here, a little glitch that I've noticed also in the game sometimes. We had the second worst record, but ended up picking third in the draft for whatever reason. So, slight thing. Some of these teams move around a little bit. But go ahead and advance to the draft, and I'm just going to show you the first round. But usually when I'm editing, I'll edit the first 5 or so, just to kind of give the game some longevity. Make sure you get a lot of pitchers and a lot of hitters in there in the minors. So let's go ahead, first round. Go ahead and draft this catcher here first. I'll look to pick up some pitching a little bit in future rounds. Like I said, we're just showing you the first round, so go ahead and auto finish this thing up. At this point, the key is what I do, and this is kind of a laborious thing, but what I'll do is I'll put every team down in terms of draft order in a computer, like in a Word document or something, and then I'll just type in all the draft picks and make sure I have all of their names and positions, because sometimes if a player's really rated pretty low and a team drafts him and there's an overstock of players at his position, they won't even sign him to a contract. So I have to make sure that I'm keeping track of each team and who they're drafting. So when I go ahead and edit this, then I can go to the guy, find him. If he's not there, then I can go to the free agent pool and look for him there. So here, take a look at all these names. I'll be putting all this down off camera and everything, but just kind of scroll through real quick. You know, I'm looking for interesting names. We've got a Jeter here, Maddox. You see that. You'll notice that Radinsky. I mean, guys at Springer, guys that have played in the league before, guys that might currently be playing, like Sasaki, right? So there's the draft. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do one of two things. With one, we're going to go ahead and edit, and with the second thing, we're not going to change anything with the guy. And like I said, we're going to see how they progress over a 3-year period and see what kind of impact they make on the minors and if anybody makes an impact on the majors. Alright guys, we're back here. All the excitement of the draft is over. Went ahead and took information down, like I explained before. Just going to go ahead and show you the process now and how it works. So what I'm going to do is, usually what I'll do is I'll give a 5-star prospect in the first round to teams that win a certain amount of games, and I'll look for a cutoff point between the better and kind of the lesser teams. A lot of times it's right around 500, so if a team finishes below 500, I'll make sure to keep track of that. I'll look at the standings and everything, and I'll go ahead and give them a 5-star prospect with their first overall choice. In the second round, it'll be a 4-star. In the third, fourth, and fifth round, there'll be 3-star players. Now for teams that finish over 500, first round it'll be a 4-star prospect. Second round it'll also be a 4-star, and then the same as the others. Third, fourth, fifth round it'll be 3-star. With subsequent rounds like 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't even bother. I leave them at 1-star. I don't even touch them because you'd be sitting there forever. So in this case, what I did though was, taking a look at everything, I went ahead and determined a cutoff point, which was 78 wins. So everybody below 78 wins, which was 16 teams, is going to get a 5-star first rounder. And everybody above, it turned out there was a cutoff there. Everybody above 81 is going to start off with a 4-star career potential guy. So the first guy I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to edit, I'm just going to do, for sake of the video, I'm going to do 3 5-star guys, 3 4-star guys, and then I'm actually going to do a 2-star guy, because I'm just curious to see how a 2-star guy works and how long he lasts. And then later on I'll go ahead and compare this to what were to happen if we would leave them where they were. Some of these guys actually drafted were 3-stars here, like Walker. He was drafted by Philadelphia, number 2 overall. But some of the guys after, or outside of the top 10, they were 1-star guys. So I'll go ahead and show you guys what happens progression-wise and everything in a different video in terms of 1-star, 2-star, 3, 4, and 5-star career potential guys. So anyway, going here into Aaron Walker. Like I said, first round pick of the Phillies. We're going to go ahead and he is a 5-star guy, or excuse me, a 3-star guy. I'm going to go ahead and make him a 5-star guy. Things I notice here are interesting about the way they do things. I try to make them more realistic. A left fielder that also plays third base, I'll just make him a right fielder also, or just an outfielder. What I do with all of the picks in the first 5 rounds is I'll bump their year, date of birth up to the most, to the highest year possible, just to make them younger, give them time to progress in the game. Another thing I'll notice, and you'll notice when you see how I compare these progressions, is guys don't, if whatever hot and cold zones they come with in the draft, that's what they stay with forever. And it's the same thing in my rosters. As guys develop over time, even if they're 5-star guys developing, their hot and cold zones never change. So I'll go ahead and put a couple hot zones in there just to kind of give them a little something. I mean, for first round picks, 5-star guys, more likely to give them a few hot zones, but you at least want to give a guy a couple hot zones. Tendencies, I don't mess with those. Ratings, I don't mess with those in terms of contact and power. What I will do though, and what I see a lot, is plate discipline will be really low. His is good, but durability will be really bad. So I like to get them at least to like a 65 level, And maybe if you got a 5-star guy, you bump him to 70. If a guy's durability is at 50 like his, he'll be needing to take a break every couple games. So, and that's the reason I do that, is because that rarely changes in progression. And you'll see what I mean as I progress through this several seasons ahead. Now, speed, what I do for everybody is I want to at least have everybody at a minimum of 50. That's even for pitchers and catchers. Because sometimes you'll see guys that are drafted with a speed of 5 or 8 or 10, something ridiculous like that. So what I do for everybody is I try to get them to 50, but then for guys that are already above it or would be above it, I give them a boost of 25 at least to make it realistic based on their position. As an outfielder, 60's decent, but I'd probably go 65 on him. And then again, just like I do with the rosters, I like to get the tendency and the ability equal to the speed. And maybe even in some cases, a tick higher, because 5-star guys, 4-star guys, maybe even 3, you're going to see some progression in their speed. So you like to try to keep things evened out. Don't usually touch the fielding unless it's pretty bad. And that's something that also doesn't progress in progression and everything, even with 5-star guys. And we'll see what happens here with Aaron Walker. But we'll go ahead and get him to 65. I might even put him at 70 because he's a 5-star guy. You just give them a little bit more of a bump than the others. All this other stuff I don't mess with. A lot of times I'll just for kicks, just throw their number. Change it to something different, because they'll always have these ridiculous numbers when they're drafted, and a lot of times they'll be having these ridiculous batting stances and facial hair and things like that. So minor things, but that's Aaron Walker. So I have a couple other guys I'm going to do just for video's sake. I'm not going to show you those because they'd be the same as this, but you'll see some before and after results of those guys afterwards. But I'm going to do a guy named Thurman, which was drafted by Detroit, 3rd overall. He was a 3-star also. And also we're going to do shortstop. Thurman's a catcher. So we're going to do a shortstop drafted by Tampa Bay named Driscoll. Those will be the 5-star guys. So let me show you Thurman real quick if I can find him. Okay, here he is right here. 46 speed, not too bad. Let's check out Driscoll real quick. And again, like I said, these guys are all 3-star guys. And you see them even being drafted that high. Okay, here's Driscoll. Shortstop, pretty good speed. Okay, so I'll go ahead and edit these off camera and then come back and then do an example of a 4-star guy for you. Back here shooting, going to do a little edit of 4-star guy and then do a 2-star guy as well. But what I wanted to show you real quick was, a lot of times when I'm doing these edits, teams, these guys will actually be free agents, or as the years pass, if they're 1-star guys, the computer will just dump them into the free agent pool because they can always draft somebody just as good. So what I'll do when I'm doing this is, and this is something I'll make a video for down the road, way down the road, weeks, but when I'm doing these edits, if there's a possibility that a team would just release a guy, I'll bring him onto my team. And what I'll do is, say for instance this guy, he's one that was drafted in the 1st round by Seattle. He was drafted number 23 overall, first baseman, 1-star guy. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and sign him to a long-term contract. And this is for their benefit. For guys like this, you can give them a deal like that and they'll take it every time. And like I said, this is for their benefit. Trade him back later after you do the editing. But the reason you do that is there may be a situation where they just release the guy as it is, as a 1-star guy. So go ahead and do your edits, trade them back, or you can even do it within, but I like to trade them to my team, extend them on a long-term deal, and then go ahead and do the edits and trade them back. So that's just a little thing I do. So I'm going to go ahead and do one 4-star guy for you. And again, I have these guys on my team. I'm going to do this guy, Malloy. He's a left fielder from Minnesota that they drafted, and he wasn't actually on their roster. I had to dig around and find him, and it turned out looked like they didn't sign him at all, and he went ahead and signed with the Cubs, or the Cubs picked him up. So if this were realistic, based on the fact that Minnesota had the number of wins they did, he'd be a 5-star guy. But for sake of the simulation, I've already got some 5-star guys, so I'm going to make him a 4-star guy. You see here, contact at 9. Can you imagine if he was left at 1 star? That he would never develop into anything. And like I said, you'll see that. Outfielder at least here. Like I said, make him a 4-star. Change his number, give him something realistic. Oh, one other thing I was going to say I like to do is, and this will be just with first rounders usually, like, 5 and 4-star guys, but if I'm sitting there and I see a guy and I want to have some kind of like ability to remember who he is, like, how are you going to remember Nick Malloy? What I do is I have some fun with it. There's a lot of current TV shows I'm watching, Netflix, Hulu, whatever it is you guys are into. Guys on my baseball team that I play on and coach, adult league, friends from your high school team or your senior league team, your friends, family, whomever. Change the name of these guys that I edit to guys that I know. So when or characters on a TV show. So when they come up, I can easily recognize the guy, right? So, like I said, a little something I do to have fun with it. And again, so 4-star guy, you want to have that durability up, 60, 65, 70. Speed, again, for an outfielder is pretty slow. Go ahead and just put him at 60. Again, you could go 65. Either way, it's fine. So he'll develop a little bit of speed over time. And look at here, you see his fielding numbers are all pretty bad. And you saw his ratings bar overall, it's really bad, right? One of the worst players in the game. So we'll just go ahead and get him up to something decent, like a 65 on each. If a guy has more speed, I'd give him a little bit more of a bump in the range. But his speed isn't that great, so we'll leave him at 65 for each. Again, don't touch the tendencies, because I really don't know how those affect things. Give him some hot and cold zones. Everything else is good. So what I was saying was, if you wanted to go ahead and put an edit in, just a little show that I just finished. I like to watch these shows after the fact. You could do a little something like that for him. Nookie Thompson, if you guys are familiar with the show Boardwalk Empire. So that's something I would do. But for sake of the simulation, we'll just leave him at what he was. And like I said, if you're doing something like that, have some fun with it, right? Your dog, your cat, your old gym coach, anything, just have some fun with it. All right, so he's done. We're going to go ahead and, off camera, I'll go ahead and do 2 more 4-star guys. Those are going to be Altman, who's a outfielder for Kansas City, and then Molina, who's also an outfielder for Baltimore. I'm going to make them 4-star guys. Now, I'll show them to you here, since I have them on my team for now. Molina here, and I guess Altman, I left him on Kansas City. Go ahead and do Lopez here. He's, like I said, he's the first baseman for Seattle. And as a 1-star guy, when I went ahead with the simulations, he retired after the second season as a 1-star guy. So I just wanted to see what would happen if we put him at a 2-star. You know, like how much more longevity would he get? And this will all make sense when I put up the second video. But again, here we are. I don't usually do 2-star guys. As I said, I'll only do the first 5 rounds and do 5, 4, and 3-star guys. Even with the 3-star guys, still have to get their plate discipline up in the 50, 55 range. Durability, same thing. You can maybe leave his a little lower if he's a lower pick. First and third baseman generally aren't the most athletic, so I just put his speed in the low 50s. Same thing with the stealing and the tendency. You have a slight bump here up to 60 for his fielding. Change that number just a little bit. One other thing I was going to say real quick was try to make it realistic with their face type and everything too, in terms of, give him Adam Dunn's old number, in terms of their name. Steve Lopez, obviously, you know, he's a Hispanic guy. So 9, I think that's a pretty good face, but sometimes if you've paid any attention, you've seen it. There'll be a guy who's black with an Asian name, right? Or a white guy with an Asian name, or, you know, whatever combination the computer spits out. So again, try to make that realistic as well. And I'll talk about that, like I said, in a future video where I talk about naming players in the draft and everything. Alright, so that's that. Have some batters. I'm going to go ahead and do some pitchers and show those to you guys. And we'll do some 5, 4, and 3-star guys, a couple of each, because I want to see how they progress. Kind of keep track and have a few data points for each guy.